The reaction to coronavirus by people of faith has been all over the board. From the extreme deniers in Iran
این مرض کرونا رو من خوردم. ان شاءالله شما بلند شی بیا زیارت علی. تمام درا رو آقا حیدر بوس کرد. باری کله به این معرفت. بچه چند ساله لیست کرد به چشاش ماری. تمام درا رو لیست کرد. اگه مریضی میکروبیره تو بدن ما بره، بدن بچه هام و مادرمون بره.
to the God is punishing us people?
So the question facing us today is, this event affecting the whole earth, is it judgment from God? The answer is yes.
To the, we can just spit on it.
COVID-19? COVID-19.
To the cautious? People of faith are in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. If they accept the science behind the virus, they show a lack of faith in the ability or willingness of their God to handle the problem. But if they have faith and ignore the advice from the scientific community, the results are far worse. You end up with results like these, where people are dying because they ignored the advice.
They don't want us to do this, but just turn around and greet 2 or 3 people. Tell them you love them. Jesus loves them.
Do you believe God will bring his people to his house to be contagious with the virus? Of course not. So welcome to the house of God. The atmosphere, everything in this house is the presence, the power of God. And in the presence of God, no virus can stand.
Obama honored the enemies of Israel. Trump honors Israel. And it's a massive difference. And because of that, I predict America will be minimally affected by coronavirus.
Pastor Anthony Locascio of the Life Church of Glenview describing his symptoms during a virtual service on YouTube last Sunday.
I've been feeling very poorly. My health has not been very good. I don't have a cough. I don't have a fever. I don't think anymore.
He says more than half of the 80 people in attendance became ill, including the speaker. About 10 of the dozen tested for COVID-19 had positive results. Tuesday night, the pastor's wife posted this video on Facebook describing the toll the virus is taking on the congregation. Some had to be hospitalized.
So what is a person of faith to do? Let's have a chat. Before we start, I want to recognize a couple comments from my last video, Granny Tackles a Mansplainer. The first is from Jennifer Hughes, who said, "Nailed it again, Granny. Your research is on point. More importantly, your message is presented with kindness, compassion, sincerity, and gentleness. You have a unique perspective that enriches our community. You don't yell, call names, or act in any aggressive manner. I think the way you present the arguments will get through to some people who need to be approached with kindness. Solid research. I think that as your production skills advance, you will reach a wider audience, and the way you present your arguments will become the straw that broke the camel's back for some people." Thank you, Jennifer. She's right about my production skills. Every video I learn something new. I'm almost entirely self-taught.
I am self-taught.
So if anyone has any suggestions for how to improve, please leave a comment. I'm all ears. The second is from Paul Keith Charlesworth, who says, "As a man, I was shocked and thought, Godless Granny's attacking us. But watching the vid, go Godless Granny." Thank you, Paul Keith. I appreciate the encouragement from all of my viewers. So please, if you are new to the channel, subscribe and do leave a comment. On to the virus. The only thing that is perfectly clear from the faith community with regards to the coronavirus is that there is no clarity. There is no single message from God telling people what his or her purpose is. Some religious leaders, like the Pope, are saying COVID-19 is not a judgment from God, and others are saying that it is. Those that say that it is claim that God is judging for everything from abortion to same-sex marriage to lack of faith and prayer from the faithful.
And this pandemic, this is a result of a fallen world, a world that has turned its back on God.
If there is a God, he's either poor at communicating the message or the message is being garbled by the pretenders. If there was an all-powerful God that had a message for the world amid a global crisis, that God should be able to communicate that message clearly enough that false messages should be easily seen as false. Or God could stop the false prophets altogether. Or better yet, God could just stop the virus. So we're left with either a God that has no message to the world about this virus, a God that has a message but no one can understand it, or there is no God. If there is a message but people just can't understand it, is this not the same as having no message? I mean, either way we get no message. Joseph Prince, pastor of New Creation Church in Singapore, a church that averages 33,000 in attendance on an average Sunday, claims to have predicted the coronavirus in a sermon in August of 2018.
So obviously God has done something in the spirit world. God has released a healing anointing, a new strain, if you would, of healing. They'll perform such things that such feats that we have never seen before. The devil is afraid and he's playing catch up. He's trying to create a new strain of virus that are like Ebola and other kinds of strains of flu that is virulent against medical treatment and all that. But just let you know that we are in the best of generations.
While that might seem accurate and specific, clearly Pastor Prince didn't even think so himself. Prince's influence spans far beyond Singapore. Joel Osteen features his sermons in his own messages for Lakewood Church. On the website for New Creation Church, sermons can be downloaded in 5 different languages. His videos on YouTube have over 1 million views. Yet, despite an influence that reaches millions and a revelation from God that the coronavirus was coming, Prince did nothing to prepare. He didn't use his influence to tell his people to stockpile medical supplies that could be given out when the virus hit. He didn't use his influence to warn leaders about the virus. If he had, would they have listened? I don't know, probably not. But the fact that he didn't use his influence to prepare the people that he could reach tells us that he didn't take the message seriously himself. He didn't take it seriously because virus epidemics are a common occurrence. Most of them are not that serious, so predicting that a virus will come is pretty easy. It's sort of like predicting that there will be tornadoes in Oklahoma this summer. There's tornadoes in Oklahoma every summer. It's an easy prediction. If he had actually had a message from God of a coming global catastrophic pandemic, you would expect that his response to that revelation wouldn't have been so blasé. I found this prediction made about the virus made on February 18th by Pastor Hank Kuhneman.
Listen to the words that I speak to you at this moment, says the living God. Why do you fear, United States? For I have spoke to you before and I speak to you again. I have extended and opened a window of mercy to this nation at this time. Therefore, the virus that they speak of, the prognostication, the diagnosis, the fear, my mercy is the quarantine that shall be greater than what they have spoken to you, United States. And because of the administration that stands in this land, therefore I give life to this nation and I give mercy. Do not fear. This virus is the Spirit of God.
Oops, I guess either God didn't do a very good job of revealing the message to you, or you weren't really paying attention. The number of deaths from coronavirus in the United States has just gone over 10,000 today, and we haven't even reached the peak yet. So what is Pastor Hank saying now?
Rejoice, for this that they call a virus shall not have the last say or shall not have its way. For I am the God who sets forth things in motion, and I am resting my feet, and I am striking with my hands, says the Spirit of God, that this will not draw and be the attention or the center point. For you watch what shall begin to arise upon this land. God says you are in a time of divine reversal and reset, like I did with Hezekiah. I brought a divine reversal and I brought a reset, and this is my word to my people and to those in the earth today.
If there is any unity from the Christian community, this would be it.
Growing concern of this global pandemic is taking a major toll on houses of worship. Many have closed their doors, taking the message of Christ and hope online. From Rick Warren's Saddleback Church.
Historically, Christians have always moved into the pain when everybody else moved out.
To the Potter's House with Bishop T.D. Jakes.
During these COVID-19 developments, we aim to be a comfort in the middle of chaos.
Millions attended church last Sunday in front of a screen from their smart TV, laptop, or cell phone. It's the new normal as churches close their doors to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. Meanwhile, a new website sponsored by the Billy Graham and Humanitarian Disaster Institute at Wheaton College is helping churches engage in online ministry.
There are a number of preachers saying, stay calm, follow what the scientists and doctors are saying, keep your distance, keep the faith, and this will pass. Just take out the keep the faith part and the same message is being said in the secular community. Having faith doesn't seem to have any particular advantage. Many preachers say that this is a reminder that we are dependent on God. They say that God has allowed the hardships and shortages that we are experiencing to remind us that we cannot live without Him. Except that God isn't then coming to provide the things that people lack. He isn't coming to the rescue and showing how He can provide. People are dying. A God that needs to let people die to demonstrate His power is a God with poor communication skills at best. Then when all is said and done, the only people that believe the message are the ones that already believed to begin with. So what was the purpose? If you are a Christian listening to this and you're wondering, how can someone be unconvinced of God's power through the virus? Look at it this way. If your neighbor comes to you after social distancing is over and says that he is thankful that Buddha saved him from the virus and Buddha provided him with food and all that he needed through the crisis, would you then convert to Buddhism? Of course not. Because there's no evidence that Buddha is doing anything through the pandemic. And there's no evidence that any other God is either. That you see your God in this just shows a bias towards seeing your God in anything that happens, which is why the atheists keep asking believers to show us the evidence. Some people of faith are doing everything that they can. John Piper changed his Twitter picture to add a mask. The latest sermon from his church was all about how people need to help each other through the crisis. So not all people of faith are over the top. If they were, few would take them seriously. Hopefully. Sometimes it's hard to tell in days like these. People of faith are turning to their faith for comfort in this crisis. I get that. Everyone needs support. My purpose here isn't to deny anyone their source of security or comfort. Rather, my purpose is to help people shift from the imaginary to the real. The power of God is imaginary. The fact that religious leaders who are supposed to be closest to God can't get a clear message from God in a time like this leaves us with a few possibilities.
I think it is time we inform the Senate that our ability to use the Force is diminished.
Only the Dark Lord of the Sith knows of our weakness.
First, maybe God is a poor communicator, in which case there is no point in following God as we can't trust His poorly communicated word. You could blame those receiving the message for not getting it right, but a good communicator especially an omniscient one that knows the abilities of those receiving the message, should be able to overcome this obstacle. If your response is that our finite minds can't understand the message, then it's a bad message. Why let people die to try to communicate a message that you know people aren't going to understand? This is just an exercise in futility. Another possibility is that there is no message. There is a God, but he isn't trying to say anything. Maybe he doesn't act on anything in this world. He's an impersonal God, in which case he isn't the Christian God. Third possibility, as some preachers say, the virus is the result of sin in the world, and that man has brought this on himself. God doesn't interfere with free will, and this is an indirect result of the free will of man. If this is true, God isn't sovereign. The whole God didn't cause this thing leaves you with an inept God that is powerless to fix the problems of this world. Such a God isn't worthy of worship. A final possibility is that there is no God. If the only thing you need God for is comfort in a time of crisis, but during the crisis he can't actually do anything, he's worthless. He's a security blanket that you've outgrown. He's not giving you any actual security. The real security of the Christian community is the community of people. During a crisis, a congregation will draw together to support one another. But people don't need a God to do this. They just need each other. Having been in both the Christian and secular communities, I have found love and support in both. The Christian community is just better organized than the secular community. But I personally think that if more people gave up religion, we would see more secular organizations. If God is your security blanket or your source of comfort, I'm not trying to take him away. I'm trying to substitute a source of power that is real, yourself and other people. Believe in yourself and be empowered. This is the opposite of the message of most Christian churches that say that you are worthless without God. They put you down to keep you dependent on the religion. And while it is not universal, it is easier in the secular community to find people who will affirm you for who you are. As Shannon Q says, elevate the discourse, because a rising tide raises all boats. This is getting a bit cheesy. I think we need some wine. Maybe some crackers? Or this crackpot.
In the name of Jesus. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Standing in the office of the prophet of God, I execute judgment on you, COVID-19. I execute judgment on you, Satan, you destroyer, you killer. You get out, we break your power, you get off this nation. I demand judgment on you. I demand a vaccination to come immediately. Yes.
I don't see how anyone could actually take him seriously. Another problem that I've seen with the Christian reaction to the virus is wealthy pastors who shamelessly keep asking for money. I can see asking people to chip in together to help those in need, but Osteen's church isn't in need. Some religious leaders are giving bad advice that is harmful to the health and the very lives of people. Most are telling people not to be afraid and to do what they can to stay safe. The same as the advice that they get from the scientific community. No God needed. So please, stay safe and live your life. And I'm drinking wine at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I've only got one more glass after this. After that, I'm out of wine and for at least another week until I can get to the store.